What's going on, you guys? Indead right here. Just wanted to go ahead and do a new video. I've been playing the GameCube recently and figured I would go ahead and do a quick hardware review on it. And so let me just go ahead and just get right into it. The GameCube was released in North America in the middle of November of 2001, and it's actually the fourth home console by Nintendo, and it's actually their first console that used optical media. So they had three other consoles, the Nintendo, the Super Nintendo, and the N64 prior to the GameCube that all used cartridge-based games. So as you can see, the GameCube is very small. It's got a exhaust fan right here. It's got an intake slot over here. And it's got two memory card ports in the front. Also came with the 4 controller ports right here in the front, all labeled with just dots. And here's the reset and power buttons with the open button over here. And as you can see, these GameCube discs are much smaller than the standard disc would be. Let me see if I can pull out a CD and compare the two. Here's your standard CD size versus that of the GameCube disc. Noticeably smaller. Because of that, the GameCube also does not function as a CD player like pretty much every console does now, with the exception of the Wii. So the GameCube did not function as a CD player, had no DVD functionality or anything like that. It purely played games, which is not a bad thing, because that's what video games are for. That's what the consoles do. Anyways, go ahead and flip this around, look at the back. In the back we have the power cable, which was used a standard plug like this, but it had a external power supply. That way they could reduce the size of the actual GameCube itself and keep the heat down. This one's the DOL-002. And this is actually the DOL-001 model GameCube, as you can see right here. This is a USA version, which is important because this is actually the original model they released, which still has the component video out. Later models that released, I'm not sure what the number was. I think it might be the DOL-101. Those released later, I think after 2004 or 2005, where they realized that the actual component video cables were just simply not selling. Unlike the Xbox and the PlayStation 2, which used the same port for all the video out, you just had to use different cables, and in the case of the Xbox, you need to use different adapters that would just do the component video out. This one actually had a separate plug, so this would be you would plug in your standard audio video cable here, run your audio out of this source, and then plug in your component cables here. The problem was Nintendo didn't allow any publishers to make any component video cables, and so the only way you could buy component video cables was off of Nintendo's website. And because of that, they are pretty rare, and you can't really find them for less than $50 or $60 online, which is therefore I'm probably never going to get one. Because if you want to get component video out of a GameCube, just go ahead and buy a Wii and buy $20 component cables for your Wii, and then you're good to go. Anyway, the GameCube uses the DC 12-volt in, and again, just go ahead and look back at these discs. These GameCube discs, this one being a Game Boy Player disc, these discs are actually very small in file size. The Dreamcast used gigadiscs, which were approximately 1.2 gigabytes of space. These are actually 1.3. And so because of that, many multi-platform games had to be downsized and had content removed out of them just so they could fit onto here. One good example, a buddy of mine continuously points this out, was he originally played Splinter Cell on the Xbox, but then he actually ended up getting a GameCube and never had an Xbox until several years later, and he ended up getting Splinter Cell for the GameCube and noticed that several things in the GameCube version were just completely missing that he saw in the Xbox version. So because of this file size compared to that of the DVDs and the dual layer DVDs available on the PS2 and the Xbox, many multi-platform games simply had to be downsized to fit onto the GameCube disc, lower video quality, things like that. Let's see, and again, unlike the Xbox and the PlayStation 2, the GameCube does not have a digital audio out. Although it does have the component video out, it does not have a digital audio out using the optical like the PS2 and the Xbox do. So you cannot get Dolby Digital out of this. You cannot get DTS or anything like that. But you can get ProLogic or ProLogic 2 through the standard audio cables. And again, in the front, we've got the standard memory cards right here. These are the DOL 014s. And most importantly, or another important thing, was they tried to actually expand the playability of the GameCube with the release of some add-ons. I have this removed because I actually have an add-on right here that I'll explain in a second. This one was a serial port, which is basically used for Nintendo to do repairs or something like that, diagnostics. But this port right here was removable, and this was actually where you could install a dial-up modem, a broadband modem, or a LAN device. And the LAN actually only supported about, by the end of the GameCube's lifespan, only about 2 games actually used the LAN, which was Double Dash, as well as the Kirby Air Ride. There were only a few games that even used this port at all. The main games that used the online service was the Phantasy Star game, Phantasy Star Online 1 and 2, Phantasy Star Online 1 and 2 Plus, and I believe Phantasy Star Online 3, which was like a card thing. This is your serial port 1, and this is actually another device right here that I went ahead and removed because later Nintendo actually released what was called their Game Boy Player, and that's why I had that disc in there. And basically the Game Boy Player is pretty much a Game Boy Advance that you attach onto your GameCube, like so. Simply slide it into place, and then you screw on these screws right here. I'm just going to do it with my fingers real quickly. Screw on these little screws right here, and then when you boot it up your GameCube, if you had in, and then right here in the front it's got the slot, here is Kirby Nightmare and Dreamland, and you can go ahead and just slide that right into the front port. And if you then turned on your GameCube with the Game Boy Player software, it would then boot the Game Boy Player, and you could play Game Boy, Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance games right here on your GameCube, which is pretty nice. Definitely an evolution of the Game Boy and the Super Game Boy that we saw on the Super Nintendo, and even further evolution of things like the Transfer Pack, which we saw on the N64 for Pokemon Stadium, for example. So all in all, I mean, the GameCube is it's a rather impressive console. Based on the actual hardware inside, it is weaker than an Xbox, but noticeably superior to the PlayStation 2, especially in terms of processing. I think it's a whole probably third faster than the actual PlayStation 2, so it's a pretty impressive piece of hardware. And it's actually got some really nice looking games, some standout titles just off the top of your head. I'm sure you guys have seen Twilight Princess, Wind Waker. Resident Evil 4 is very highly regarded for just looking beautiful. Games like that really took advantage of the GameCube. Just a couple more cosmetic things. I found it interesting that the GameCube had what appears to be a handle. So maybe this was so you could take it to your friend's house and maybe so your kids could move it around better or something. But I mean, I don't know what it would be besides a handle. That's all people ever use it for. I use it as a handle. That's how I carry around the GameCube. But all in all, the GameCube is a pretty impressive piece of hardware, and it didn't sell too well, at least compared to the other consoles. The GameCube ended up selling about just under 22 million units, which is a lot, but compared to what they've done with the Wii and compared to that of, like, for example, the PlayStation 2, the GameCube didn't do nearly as well, but definitely had its good share of games, and continues to be a very fun and impressive console where the games are still actually highly sought after, especially because the games are fully backwards compatible with the Wii. Many of these GameCube games have not really dropped in price. Some of the more popular ones have really stayed in the $15, $20, $25 price ranges. So if you haven't played a GameCube, if you haven't got one, go ahead and get a Wii, go ahead and get a GameCube. There are dozens of them everywhere. People simply cannot get rid of them because of the Wiis. So don't miss up on the GameCube. Look for the right games, take advantage of it. Y'all have a good one. Peace.